This speak will be the talk what is written in the agenda, but I just shortened the title because in the essence is chemistry as a service. It will be about Chemicalize, which is an online product, let's say a service, software as a service product for ChemAxon. And first, I'd like to say some words about the agenda, what I will talk about today. And first of all, yes, what is Chemicalize? Because probably most of you haven't heard about it. The second is the current status, where we are with the development right now at the moment. Sorry. And then some history, how we reached that point where we are. And then what we provide to you at the moment, and how we operate it, because in the cloud it's a very important thing how you can operate the services, and how we plan the future, how we try to improve the services based on statistics, for instance. So what is Chemicalize? And yeah, for first sight, it might not have anything. I mean, this question is not related to the Chemicalize definition at all, but as you are customers, you probably ask these questions from the vendors, or sometimes maybe some of you ask this question. And we face that question as well, regularly. But we face another questions, like how to integrate your tools. Do you have an API? How to get updates? Can I access it faster? So on, so on. A couple of other questions what we face regularly. And I'd like to think Chemicalize is a kind of, if not an answer, at least a response to those questions. So that's what I would like to introduce you this talk. But more a bit of a definition, Chemicalize is an online self-service cheminformatics platform based on the ChemAxon's market-leading calculators, naming, and search technology. This is what we like to say about it. And it's not even one product, but we separated that into two products. One is Chemicalize, and another one is the Chemicalize Pro, which is the professional. Of course, the Chemicalize is rather for smaller companies, academia, individuals. There will be another slide about it. And the professional is mostly APIs, mostly hosted components and services, which are more feasible maybe for bigger companies. So where we are with the Chemicalize at the moment, we have a lot of users, as you can see, 36K users and almost 500,000 page views. One thing is important here, and I would like to highlight, is the number of feedback, which is 1,500 feedback, 1,500, yeah, feedback altogether, which means 2-3 feedback a day, which is quite good because that could help us to improve the system a lot. We solved a lot of other things. I won't just repeat what you can read here. So yeah, the next one is the history behind this tool. It started 11 years ago. It was so nice at that time. Actually, I think it's still nicer than plenty of the web pages on the internet. But it was 11 years ago. And it was really an experiment, a web-based experiment to provide a kind of chemistry service for non-commercial usage. But it got popularity, so we introduced new and new features as the time went by, like web page annotations, calculations, chemical search. And in 2016, we thought that's high time to revisit this topic. So we decided to release a new version, a totally new one, written from scratch, using newer technologies, providing more features. And 2 years later, we introduced the professional version as well, which is mainly for API usage. And the values what we provide. I think the values are not simple features, but also benefits, and they together will give the end user some kind of value. And here I also would like to highlight two points. One is always the latest and greatest version available. I think that's a true benefit for the users because you don't need to care about the licensing at all in the future because you won't even receive any license files. We handle that in-house, I mean on the cloud. And the greatest version available means that you don't even need to upgrade anything because we take care of the upgrades as well. So you will always have the latest version. And the other one is the pay-as-you-go, which is, I think it's a bit better. If you don't use something very, very much, then it's a bit better than having something in-house, because if you have something in-house, you pay all the time. If you pay as you go in an online, for an online service, you just pay after your usage. So if you don't use it for, I don't know, half a year because the project ended and the new one not started, then you don't pay for that. That's easy. And the features are different for Chemicalize and the Chemicalize Professional, of course. As I mentioned, the Chemicalize is rather for simpler workflows when you can calculate properties, when you can checking compliance, but mostly for single chemical structures, while the Chemicalize Pro gives you web components, what you can embed into your website, to your tools, not necessarily websites, but any tools, plus a lot of hosted backend services, APIs. The segments are different, what we are targeting. With Chemicalize, mostly individuals or small companies, academia, teachers, so on. And with the Chemicalize Pro, we try to target the catalog companies, for instance. We have a separated feature for them. And integrators like web developers and site administrators. I talked about the features, but I'll show you at least screenshots about them. This is the Chemicalize kind of, in quotes, simple user interface. Here you can see that you can type the names of, let's say, systematic or common names if you want to, calculate for properties calculate. Or you can draw the structures. This will draw a Marvin.js. We'll open a Marvin.js where you can draw the structure. And here will be the results. And that's a kind of history here. And only this screen uses 3 tools from ChemAxon. One is the naming, when you use this text box to convert the name. One is the Marvin.js for drawing, plus the calculators for showing the results. Calculating the results. And the same thing for the chemical structure search, just we introduced here the PostgreSQL cartridge as well. The analogy is the same. You can type or you can draw, that's the same. The document search highlights quite nicely the hits within the documents, what we have found for your query. And we have a web viewer annotator, which loads and annotates chemically any public websites from the internet. You specify the URL here, and we just highlight the chemistry in it. Compliance checking, which is, again, a feature, but for kind of individual molecules. And the chemical drawing gives you the opportunity to draw, and then, which is important, maybe it's not so visible, but there is an image export functionality here, which lets the user to export the images in various publishers' formats, so it can be used in publications. And the Chemicalize Pro, which is the professional version, one important feature is the hosted catalog search, I would say, which gives you this part of the screen, and this one is just part of the administration interface, but that part of the screen can be very easily used and integrated into any kind of websites, because you just reference 2 JavaScript files plus inserts a new HTML element into the website, and you will get the editor, you will get this text box for converting the names, and you will get the results list. We have different visualization, and if it is not good to you, then it's even customizable. Hosted chemical drawing is the Marvin.js in a hosted version, which is again only referencing JavaScript into the target website. And compliance checking API, which is, I show only the administration screens because that's an API service. We have a full documentation for that, and that service really just a REST service. So you send a JSON object and you will get the results in a JSON object. But this could be called plenty of times, I mean billion times if you wish. Maybe for that purpose, an on-demand in-house version is better, but yeah, it's possible technically. And the same for the calculation APIs, but getting or provide, let's say, for calculating properties and on the API level. And we have just started this feature 1 year ago. I mean, this Chemicalize Professional, but we already have a couple of users, let's say several, and they must like us because they all let us to use them as references in our, let's say, presentations or advertisements. And it's also very important, we also trust ourselves, so we believe in ourselves. That's important stuff. So we use the Chemicalize features in other ChemAxon production tools like Zosimos as well. And the architecture, how we provide or how we operate these things. Well, if you would like to operate that reliably or provide the service reliably to the customers, you face a lot of challenges like high availability, security. And this year's theme is the superhero. So what would the superhero do to fulfill these requirements? Ideas? Then I help you. They superheroes, so they have superpower. Probably that's why they are superheroes. So they use superpower. And in this case, the superpower is using microservices, because this is how you provide high availability nowadays. And plus, we do a lot of other things which are not really visible for the users or the customers, like monitoring or access management or release management, but they are really, really integrated part of the solution. And the technology stack, let's say, started with the Amazon Web Services. Everything is hosted in Amazon. We use Docker images and Stripe for the payment processing, Elasticsearch for document searching, MongoDB for the user management, PostgreSQL enhanced with the Postgre cartridge for chemical search, plus React Redux for client and the Spring Cloud for the whole architecture management, like shown here. This is the virtual private cloud what we have in place, and very, very quickly just a request, how we handle a request. It's not very complicated. So the user asks for, I don't know, a calculation, let's say log P or PK. We identify or authenticate the user, and then we call a service, a microservice. In this case, you could see there are 3 calculation services available, but this rectangle means that in auto-scaling stuff, so if the load is bigger, then we start new services. And the calculation service, before doing the work, asks for the user account service if the user has access or has subscription to that service, and if he has, we just send it back to the user. So it's not really complicated. Actually, technically it's more complicated, but it's very understandable. And the statistics, how we handle that, or how we try to improve the things. Well, you could ask, why do you need statistics at all, since you have 2-3 feedback a day, which should be okay, because when you implement or when you try to improve your tools, then the user feedback is very important because they lead the development. But maybe the answer is hidden here in this picture. Because if you ask this gentleman here how confident he is he can drive a car, then he might answer, yeah, I'm sure, I'm pretty confident I can handle it. But maybe the reality shows something different. So that's why we not only rely on the things what the user said, but we also measure what they do. So first chart is the user number of Chemicalize, which is a little bit, it's quite good. It's linear, but we had 30,000 users in 2 years. So, and it's quite linear. So I think it's a very good achievement in 2 years. And the hosted search is also a good example here, because we have just started 1 year ago. and it started to take off. There was a fallback during the Christmas time, but after that, there is a quite huge increase. Plus the visitors' geographic locations, we also consider that. If you could see, the darker blue is the more users from that area. And actually, it's we pretty much covered the whole world, so I think it's a good sign as well. There are things which are not so surprising. We have most users from the US, and also North and West Europe is strong. But what is interesting, and that the Brazil, for instance, because those users were quite unknown to ChemAxon before, but they are using Chemicalize. We started to analyze the reasons. We have no answers yet. So I encourage you to come back next year and ask the reason. I will have the answer for that at that time. And start with the bottom table here, the lower one. So you could see we also collect statistics about the actual tasks the user did. And I should also say everything is anonymous, so it's nothing. Even the calculations, you can turn off the history. So if you don't want, you don't store anything private. And these statistics are always anonymous. So it is clearly visible the calculation and the image export are the most popular things or features in this solution. And the upper table is not that relevant. It's rather interesting at the moment because it shows the importance of the word of mouth. We don't have any social media advertisement anywhere, but still there are some discussions about Chemicalize, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, so on, so on. And on the top of that, of course, we try to focus on providing you the kind of best user interface we can do. And for that, we use Hotjar, and we do a lot of statistics in Hotjar, including, for instance, the heat map visualization, which shows what are the parts of the page, what the users use usually, or how they use the pages. And with that, I would like to close this talk. And thank you for your attention.